Hey, good evening, everybody. We are now live. We appreciate you all for always being a part of what we are doing in ministry. This is our seat at the table. Tonight, I am going to hit you with some things that you are probably going to look at me like I am crazy. So, listen, we welcome all of you tonight to our seat at the table. So, we pray tonight that the Spirit of the Lord will be with us, that the Lord will be upon us, that the Holy Spirit will move through us, that it will speak for us, He will speak through us, that He would work with our mind. Pray for some of our family members. One of my family members' child is in the hospital. I think she said that the child had like 8 multiple seizures back to back. ICU, so we were with him throughout the day. When I saw the post, and I definitely understand because I've had multiple seizures in my sleep. But when you look at a child, I look at that just a little bit different than I look at myself because they're dangerous either way. But with a child, a little bit more dangerous depending on the age. So we're praying for them. Seen a lot of friends that have had loved ones that have passed. So we're praying for them as well. We are praying for all of our friends, loved ones, no matter what their color is, no matter what their creed is, no matter what their background is, irregardless of who they are. Still praying for my family with loved ones that have passed, that they have been putting in their final resting place until the Lord Jesus come again. And those that are facing, those that are still dealing with loved ones that have passed, and they're still dealing with the emotional, mental trauma that they have trying to been getting over, assessing. They have looking to see how to move forward from a process, how to move to the next stage of grief, bargaining, and all of the other things that we face when it comes down to the reality that the physical part of the person is no longer here. The voice is no longer able to be heard. They're no longer able to go and see them face to face. So we definitely pray for them and all around the world and dealing with all of the things that are happening. Those that are looking at all of the worldly issues where people have lost loved ones, all of the disasters have taken place, and still trying, as we would often say, pick up the pieces and begin to rebuild. So as you begin to rebuild, remember God still says, "Be anxious for nothing," as He says to the church of Philippi, but in all things, through prayer, supplication, and thanksgiving, make your requests be made known. Paul told the believers down at Rome, he said that the Spirit make intercession for our groanings that we know not of. So even though you may not know what words to say, we're going to lead. We're going to people that we believe know how to get a prayer to heaven. We're going to Big Mama. Big Mama may have been the person, or grandfather, or mama, or daddy, or we're going to aunt, we're going to an uncle, we're going to a friend, we're going to a husband or a wife, and they may no longer be on this side. Or we know, that best friend that you can call on the telephone, and they give us that word of advice, that word of encouragement. We know that counselor that we can go to, and that counselor may not be in position to verbally speak, but they're still here, but they can't say the word that they used to say. They may be a convalescent home. They may be in a nursing home. So we're praying for all of them tonight. Now, here's the thing with prayer. You have to believe the words that you say, or words that they have said, and you have to make an application. You have to put them into play. You have to, first of all, hear, believe, receive, accept, apply, and begin to transition that into a lifestyle living so God can bring it to pass. So tonight, those are some of the things that we're going to look at. So look, let's divulge ourselves. Let's dive right into it tonight because I really think and believe that some of the things that we are still facing is because we have not removed some things. We have not put ourselves in a place that we can begin to move forward. Again, I want to say happy birthday to my oldest brother, born in 1955, and he made 70 years old today. And happy birthday to everybody that may be celebrating the birthday on this 17th day of November. So whatever year your birthday was, Happy birthday to you, 1985, 1977, 1965, 1924, 1923, 1915, 1900, whatever year it was that you're still here. You may call it one revolution around the sun, your born day, or whatever you call it, but you're still here. Bless the Lord that you're still on this side of the land of living. Whatever you call your God, there ain't but one, but if you call it something else, hallelujah, God bless you. Whatever you say, you're still here. You have breath in your body. You have blood running through your veins. You still walking around. You in somewhat good health. So praise the Lord. Whatever you call your God or whatever it is that you're doing, or whatever you may not, you may be atheist or what have you. So we cover all of that. So whatever you call yourself, whether you serving diamonds, the sun, the dog, the moon, the birds, or whatever, I say that in all sincerity, not with grievousness or being whatever you may think it is. I'm being very genuine, but you're still here. You're able to get up and you're able to breathe. You're able to be happy because you have another year of life. So, with that being said, think about the things that we look at. Think about the environments that we all have come up in. Whether you were born into a family that you had a mother and a father. Think about the fact that you may have been in just a single parent household, whether that was just a father or whether that was just a mother. Think about the fact that you might have been left at a hospital and they had find you a place to live. Think about the fact that mama might have left you in a dumpster. Think about the fact that you might have been found on the side of the road. You might have been left at the church. You might have been left at the police station. You might have been left at the back of a car. You might have been left at your grandmother's house. You might have been born because you are the product of incest, product of rape. Think about the mere fact that you may have been born in a trailer park. You may have been raised in an environment, what we call the ghetto, because if we really understood what the ghetto really was, you might have been born in the housing developments and all of these other things. You may have been born neighborhoods that may have been down there. You may have been called trailer park trash. You may have been born in low poverty, below poverty, or whatever the case is. But that was not the end of your story. That was the beginning of where you were. You still came into this life. You may have been born with a half a ear, no ear. You may have been born with a cleft lip. You may have been born with a club foot, or whatever the case is. You came into this world, and specifically, God gave you a purpose, and that purpose was that you were born. That's the first thing. The second thing is that you may have not had all of what everybody else had. You may have been born into a situation where you were in a project living. Mama might have not had all of the money. Might have been born in an era where, what they call baby boomers, where they were born in an area where, they had all kinds of development that was going on. The oil field was booming at that time. That's why they call baby boomers. And all of a sudden, then everything just fell. The bottom dropped out. People wanted to jump out of windows and kill themselves. And lost their homes and have you, born during the Vietnam era, during the Korean War era, during World War One, and all of these things like that. And there was a whole lot of things that transitioned, but there were many of you that still were alive. You were born during an era where you found yourself in a position where people didn't like what you looked like. You drunk out of water fountains where it said whites only, blacks only, and all of these other different things. You didn't really have a whole lot. You were able to eat from the gardens because they grew their gardens, and your family was sharecroppers and all of that other good stuff. And and I say good stuff because those were times in which you didn't really have suffering, but there was suffering going on. Suffering wasn't bad as it was. You had kids that were being kidnapped and kids that were being brought to different families and sold off, and you didn't realize that you were a product of somebody that kidnapped you in your sleep. And now you were raised in a family that you didn't realize that really wasn't your family. And years later, you were reunited with your family and found out that the mom and daddy that you had was really not your biological mother and father because somebody stole you in the night. But all of these things have been biblically talked about, men stealers and all of these things like that. So what I'm trying to get to tonight is the fact that you have to be able to move forward and not allow things to hold you back, be the reasoning behind why you develop the resistance in a negative way, but build a resistance in a positive way. Your thinking has been the way that it is because we allow things to now negatively affect our thought process, the building of what we have. The reason why we have walls up the way that we have walls up, the reason why we fight against being able to move forward, being able to let go, being able to get past the relationships, or the why we draw in certain types of certain types of people. The reason why we have negative reactions and responses to the things that we have is because where we came from, we allow ourselves to become the product or the development of that product, or become the production of where we came from, because we allow what we have verbally heard, emotionally felt, mentally processed, and because we have psychologically psyched ourselves out, and we have created a world that now have become the safe space of where we have been living, and we draw now those things into the world that we have now created. So we have those same types of people that we find ourselves always becoming a magnitude, because we're the negative side, they're the positive side, and the negative and positive draw itself together. So we do the same thing in what we call the church. And because we have been taught that church is the building where the people go, instead of understanding that we, the people, are the church, because we are the house where the Spirit of the Lord dwells. But we have been taught that the building is where the church dwells, and the Spirit of God dwells in the building, because He said that He would dwell in the thick darkness. That was in the old, under the covenant, under what covenant was that God had made with man, but the covenant Christ made with man himself. God made it in the first. There were 9 covenants and other covenants that came thereafter. But now we develop a means, because leaders did not envelop or take the envelopment of what had been enveloped by God and develop what needed to be now really brought out. Does that make any sense? So because of that, we always have been taught that opposites attract, right? We attract what we really want. And because we're not the product of our environment, we build the environment that we want to live in. We build the mental environment, the psychological environment, the emotional environment. We build the psychological environment. We the environment that we consider to be the attractive environment. We build the environment that now arouses us, that causes us to have the various types of appetites, hungers, and desires. And because this is what we have been around, our eyes begin to feast off it. Our ears begin to enjoy it. We find the entertainment in it. We have been taught by it indirectly, and we learn these behaviors, and we take upon what we have seen, instead of now adversely changing the dynamics of what we have seen, what we have experienced, what we have allowed ourselves to become a part of or participate in. Just because the damaging thing now to the innocence of the authority that was in us, because we were unable to now resist or fight against it. When we became to the place where we were able to say something, we were forced to now believe that we could not speak up. Now that you can speak up, speak out, speak against, begin to now portray who you really are, and stop continuing the cycle. We call it generational curses. So what we continue to do, instead of breaking the cycle and continuing the same cycle that create generational issues, we continue to cause these same things to take place. So we're wondering why, from one generation to the next generation, to the next generation, the next generation, the cycle continues, and we call it a generational curse. No, we pass on the same mentality, we pass on the same spirituality, we pass on the same authoritative, we pass on the same types of issues, because we refuse to now take the authority and break it off. It becomes by choice, because instead of teaching that you don't have to settle and enjoy the ensettlement of what has been built, we don't break it off. We have been taught to stay silent. We are taught to live in silence. We have been taught to now move in silence. And while we're moving in silence, we are taught to now live in prison of silence, instead of now distilling the silence by draining the silence so that our voices speak out by the kind of movement that we live so that our children and our children's children, because what you have embedded in your mind is now passed through the mental, the psychological, the blood, the DNA of the father that passes to the mother, and the mother that had it from her mother, and that passed through her father that created her with her mother, now passes on from generation to generation, because the in working while the child is now attached in the mother's womb, it passes from the father to the mother that now has his DNA, which in her DNA passed from the DNA of generations past to the generation present, that is being developed by his seed that now attaches to that egg. Now it is enveloped in that child and is never broken off. Am I making any sense? Because in the networking of that child being made inside the mother, while it is now passed to that, it is kept, and as the placenta is given, and y'all don't know, most doctors take DNA that is left from the father that is in the placenta, and now they use it now to begin to check the genetic coding to see how they can now begin to alter a whole lot of things. Did y'all know that? So the placenta don't hold the DNA of the mother, it holds the DNA of the father. And while your child is being made inside the mother, it's a system and network of nerves that now has to be built before flesh has now covered over all of these things. So the wiring of the child is made, but all of the feelings that the mother had, but the encoding of the father is in there, while the rest of the encoding now engrafts itself into the coding that has now come from the father's seed, while it is now encoded by what the mother felt inside the child, until now flesh comes around it and it becomes a zygote that now turns into an embryo that in turn turns into a child. So now we have all of these things that pass on. So whatever goes on between the mother and father, if the father is still around, and if the father is still around, if there are issues that are going on, whatever happens with the mother, it is amplified by the fluid in which the child is in. So what does that have to do with anything that I'm saying? If we're going to break off anything and establish and reestablish and begin to cause them to no longer suffer the same things that we suffered, or let's use the word FATE, the same fate that we dealt with throughout our lives, throughout the generations that we came from, then we have to now teach them how to begin to dispel, to break off, to cause, to remove, to destroy, to burn up, so that there's nothing that's left of it, because we show them how not to settle for it. See, you can settle without settling. You can settle at that moment until you teach them how to create the right foundation by breaking up the old foundation in order to move forward. I know you got something to say because I'm looking at the smile that you got on your face. So in order for them to move forward, you got to stop allowing the same things to process you, to create in you, and to cause you to become the same product that you came from. You don't have to be the good person. You don't have to be the ghetto person. You don't have to be the hood person. You don't have to be the trailer park person. You don't have to be the product of the environment that you came from. You don't have to be the person that stood on the corner. You don't have to be the person that went from house to house. You don't have to be the person that went from home to home. You don't have to be the person that came out of a broken home. And it wasn't a broken home. There was a choice that was made because God knew that what he had already placed in you because of the DNA of the Father that was in you, and he knew that you had to be in the home because the father that you had was only the deposit that needed to deposit in your mother, because he had already deposited in the father, and in the father what was needed in him was already in you to be able to be built, because the mother was the one that needed to build and pull out of you or extract out of you what God had put in you, so that you can carry out what the family and generations before were not fulfilled through the father's bloodline. Or if the mother left and the father had you and she left you with your father, it was in the DNA of your mother's father bloodline that needed to be brought out. So that's why you were left with the father, so the father would be able to now help you to establish, be able to recognize, create a standard, and begin to move forward. So now it teaches you how to use your words properly and use them the right way, and recognize that you were not just a diamond in the rough, but you were the best diamond that had ever came out of the diamond mine. that you was the best pearl that had ever been found in the sea. And at the bottom of the sea, because what's at the bottom is the best from the bottom, and it helps to be able to sustain the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the bottom, so that everything that's on the top had a foundation that could not be. Y'all will catch that tomorrow of next year. So tonight, you had to go through the things that you went through. You had to deal with the heartbreaks. You had to deal with the fussing, the cussing. You had to deal with some of the scars that you had. You had to deal with some of the knocks upside your head. My father hit me upside the head with a hammer. My father hit me upside the head with a crescent wrench. My father hit me upside the head with a half-inch ratchet, a 3/4 inch ratchet, a 3/8 inch ratchet. Y'all don't understand. But I found out that my skull is about that thick. Did it hurt? Yes. But it never bust my skull open. Didn't realize that my skull was thicker than the average human being skull. Hello? So at the end of the day, did that mean, in the era that I grew up in, y'all would have called that child abuse. They ain't call that child abuse. Call that a child abuse back then. My mother had my grandfather whipped that they got whipped with. And my mother cracked that whip across my back and it hurt.
Child abuse didn't come in until the end of the 80s, early 90s.
And that was because most Caucasian people had a problem with black women or black people in general chastising their children, and they had a problem with it. But where I grew up and on the bayou, there was no problem with blacks and whites chastising each other's children. It was when we went to the city that the problem came. So I'm saying that you don't have to end up the way that you are, but if you continue to make the same choices, you'll end up in the same situations again because you draw in what you allow yourself to participate with. The participation of what we do causes us to continue to manage our lives the same way. So that's why the word tells us that if we draw nigh to him, he'll draw nigh to us. He's steady calling us. But if we don't want to put off what we once did, we're going to continue to be the way we are. You can acknowledge him, you can confess him, you can profess him, he can come into your life, but if you ain't willing to undress what you used to dress up with, and you still dressing up with salvation, and you still dressing with the same worldliness, there's a war that's going on. He said there's a struggle between the flesh and the spirit. There's a war going on. And you're going to have problems. I went to sleep today. My heart rate got up to 118 because while I was asleep, I was trying to figure out why I was in this new house. And my sister Cassandra, my niece Sierra, and my brother Victor, they all was in this. And I was trying to figure out why my wife wasn't in the dream. And one of the actors from a movie that a movie star never met in my life, but I've seen him in many movies. And he played many villains in the and he was trying to kill me, and I was trying to figure out. I want my sister in this house, beautiful house. It had a carport, it had a garage, and it had white cabinets. It had a brand new kitchen, brand new bedroom, and it had white bifolding doors in the room. And all of a sudden, the actor come out, white actor came out, and I knew him by the movies, knew him by name, and he came out with his hatchet trying to kill me. Never tried to kill my sister, never tried to kill my niece. And I called my brother because for one moment I could not defeat this thing. And he kept saying, you thought you got rid of me. You thought by putting me in jail. You thought by putting me in prison. You thought by locking me in hell that you got rid of me. And I'm like, what in the world? And I called my brother by name. I said, Victor, I need your help, man. I can't handle this thing. And he said, I don't want them. I want you because you thought you got rid of me. And I grabbed my niece and put her on my shoulder, and I'm running out of the house. And for some reason, it was like a slow motion movie. Didn't mess with my sister Sam. My brother tried to jump him. He said, I don't want them. I'm not going to kill them. He tried to cut my right hand off, and I was bleeding in vision. And I'm like, and ever just speeding up. And God said, what are you running for? When you going to stop? He said, if you stop running and face it, you got it. I said, okay, so wait a minute. Hold up. So that means there's something that's still there that I need to face. And when I stopped, he said, now face it. I said, okay, so this thing has got to be something that's tied to my flesh that I got to fight spiritually because it's something that don't want to let me go. And when I stopped, my heart started slowly coming down. My heart stopped racing. When I woke up, I looked at my watch. And my heart rate right now is 109 because me and this boy, we had a tussle. And when I tell you we had a tussle, and when I finally faced him, I said, okay, sensuous, Satan, Lucifer, the beast, the false prophet, we're going to face this thing now because you're spiritual, you're not natural. And what you thought you was going to do, you thought you were going to kill me in my sleep. Because when I tell you, it was almost ready to suffocate me. Oh, you thought if you killed me in my sleep, I would die and wouldn't wake up. We're not going to do that. So let's go on, let's have it. Since you don't want them, you want me. So you figure if you kill me now? He said, yeah, because if I kill you now, you can't finish the work that God started. So I had to fight him in this vision. So when we was able to face it, the Spirit of the Lord and I was able to wake up and I was fine. I said, okay, so now God, you got to tell me what it is that I need to deal with, that I need to face. Move, King, move. My dog think I'm facing it right now. So whenever something spiritual happens, my dog come with me, then he think he's supposed to fight with me. Literally. So here now, when I faced it, it began to gradually go away. So God said, relax, take a deep breath. And I'm taking a deep breath in the dream or the vision because it was real. I woke up and I looked around and I was fine because I had to face it. He said, now let me tell you what those things that still feel that they want to tag along with you. He said, when you face them and you call them by name, so I started calling 4 different things out by name. He said, now when you dispel them, you're going to be fine. So I did. So let me tell y'all about me is why he gave me this to deal with tonight, to help you. He said, when you call them by name, you take authority over them. So I had to take authority over some things that I didn't realize was still there, that was still trying to fight. That thought that if they would take me out in a dream and in a vision, that they would take me out in real life. So I had to face some things. So that's why when you look at where you came from, what you did, and how they affected you, and the manner in which they was affecting you in, and how they still affect you, and what is still attracting, and how they still affect your appetite. Because they got to affect your flesh in order to affect your spirit. They got to affect your mind in order to affect your spirit. They got to affect your thoughts in order to affect your spirit. And infest cause you to become sick. I'm trying to help y'all tonight. So this seat at the table is trying to get you to call them by their name. You want power and authority? You want to be able to move in the place that you go? And he said, this is why the body of believers are still sick, because my leaders, they're not feeding them the right diet. I'm talking real talk. We get all enough. And when I say we, because I am a preacher, I am a pastor, a leader, but I give y'all that. But some of y'all don't want the real stuff. Y'all just want to be fed a fancy free diet that says I can stay in what I'm in. But then when you get sick, you want the preacher to come pray you out. Do you know how to pray for yourself? He said, and when you pray, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. No, you don't want to talk to God like that. You just want God to come get you out and give you a go past jail free card. And then you go right back in. You want to be stuck in your sin, but you don't want to be free. You want to be free for the moment, or like they say, the folk that's in jail, you want to be gay for the stay, but you don't want to be called gay.
Come on.
Hello.
Come on.
This might be offensive to some of y'all, but I'm going to call it real talk because that's what happened. You got 6 months in jail, so while you're in there, you're going to do a man, you're going to do a woman, whichever one you are, but you still have those affections when you get out, and you wonder why you're drawn to it, because those in that lifestyle recognize you have those feelings, those affections, those thoughts. They recognize you have that upon you, so it's whispering in your ears. And when you can't get what you go get what you can, because you know there are those out there that carry it, but you don't want nobody to know that you're dipping in water that you don't want nobody to know you're playing in. You playing in pools that you don't want to play in, but you don't want nobody to know that you're playing in that pool. Y'all better talk to me. And we do it in church. And I'm talking about this church first, before you go to the building. And I've been looking at so many ministries that have so many sites, but there are so many sites that only open at certain times, while the primary site is open all the time. How is it that you have all of these campuses, that are only open at certain times because you, as the apostle, as the one that created or started the ministry, got all of these sites across the areas where I live at. But all of the sites that you have, they're only open on certain days of the week for certain things that you got going on. But your primary campus is open all the time. But the other ones can't open until you tell somebody to go and minister there. Or you have certain things that go on certain days of the week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but other than that, they're not open. Or when you allow certain officers to go and do things. Yes, I'm calling it out because I'm lost, because the house of God should be open all the time. But on the same strip, 13 ministries that are there on the same strip. But if somebody else come and asks, you charge them an arm and a leg. Because the days that you're not operating on the Sundays you're not operating, nobody can go in your house. But nobody else can come in the same complex where you are because you have it and you have a contract and no other ministry can be same area where you are. I got a problem with that. We're supposed to be brothers in Christ. We're supposed to be members one of another. We're supposed to be many members but one body. So you ain't but a finger. You ain't but a toe. You ain't but a pointer finger. You ain't but one of the middle fingers. You ain't but a pinky finger. You ain't but a thumb. You ain't but a big toe. Second, third, you ain't but the small toe. Small toe is for balance on the foot. You ain't but a shin. You ain't but a femur bone. You ain't but a kneecap. Hello? You ain't but an elbow. You ain't but the wrist bone. You ain't but an ulnar, a radius. Hello, y'all. So how is that? You ain't but one of the 7 bones in the cervical. You ain't but one of the 12 bones in upper torso of the backbone. Y'all better talk to me. The upper lumbar, the lower lumbar, one of the hip bones. Hello? So when I looked at that, God gave that to me through all that happened. And he had me take and wrap up my right wrist because he tried to cut my right hand off with a large axe in his hand. Because his voice changed, his eyes changed. And he said, I'm going to kill you today because you still have some attachments that you didn't realize was there because you imprisoned me and you thought I was gone and you left me for dead, but I've come back. And God said, you do realize that aside to the end, he said, you remember when you was a little boy, you had this same dream? I'm like, yeah, I said, I was a child. He said, you had the same similar dream. He said, you remember the face? I said, yeah, it's the same face I saw then. He said, you knew what that was about then? I said, yeah. He said, remember I told you we're getting close? I said, yeah. Oh, gotcha. I know what that means. And when I went to fight him on the outside, my sister wasn't there, my brother wasn't there, my niece was not there. I threw my niece to safety, and it was just he and I. And when I stood up straight, he changed from being the actor to being a demon. And it was just he and I. And he didn't know what to do because then there was a flood of demons that were behind him. And it was me against an army of demons. And this big one tall, ugly, well, y'all know how Arnold Schwarzenegger said it in The Predator. I told y'all, I see that the table is real talk, but some of y'all are so super saved. You know, I'm like Peter and I'm like Paul. Yeah, I cussed in this vision, dream, whichever one it was, because it was real. And I was literally bleeding. I woke up looking at my right wrist. And I wanted to make sure my hand was still there. Because that's how real it was, because it hurt. Because I woke up with my right hand hurting. And I woke up with a headache because my heart was racing so fast, it felt like I was going to die in the dream. And my watch told it all. I can prove it to my wife. I don't want the weather.
Mm. Wow.
But when we recognize these things and we don't allow them to cloud our mind, our thoughts, our judgment, and we change the perception and we change how we really think, we can now change where we're going and how we're going to get there. And we change the application because we take one, ownership. Two, we accept, we acknowledge. Three, we take authority because we call it by the name that it is. And we recognize the name that has been given above all names in the earth. And if you have really professed and confessed with your mouth that Jesus both died and rose, and he's seated at the right hand of God. God reminded me, he said, do you realize that my son came through 40 and 2 generations? That he stopped off in Bethlehem of Judea? That he was baptized by John in the river Jordan? Not only did he do that, but he died on Calvary. He was nailed to a tree. Do you realize that he was whipped? His flesh was torn. His body was put on a tree. It was open. He said, think about it, that when he went to Calvary from the 6th to the 9th hour, he died. From 12 to 3. He said, now, everybody want to argue. They want to say that he was white, then they want to say he was black. He said, do you remember that the Passover lamb, it was roasted? You think about if he was white, first of all, they had to shave the wool off the lamb. Second of all, it was at high noon from 12 to 3. It was hot. I'm going to offend some folk when I say this because his lips were cracked. So they took vinegar and they took some other stuff and they put it on a sponge and they put it on his lips because they thought he was in pain when he said, I thirst. So at high noon, he was roasted. So he couldn't have been white because when white folk get sunburned, they're red. Y'all better talk to me.
Right.
He wasn't nailed in the middle of his hand because there are metacarpal bones and his hands would have slipped through. He was nailed in the middle of his hand through the ulna and the radius. I want y'all to catch something. Not a bone was broken because it was already pre-talked about in the song. Now, bones. He didn't say a mumbling word. He said like a sheep was before he was dumb. He never said a mumbling word. So if that was the case, think about how the Passover lamb was. They had to shear him first. They had to cut all his hair off. They had to gut him. So all of his backside, his face was disfigured because they pulled every hair out of his face. But then think about it, because he was beat so bad, he was so bloody they couldn't see the bruises. They'd have saw the bruises if he was white. This ain't about a racial thing. I want y'all to catch it. God was saying all of this while I was in this dream. All of this was being talked about while I'm fighting this demon. While I'm fighting this fallen angel. Let me call it what it really is. Thought that he was going to take me out. And thought that if he'd have took me out while I was asleep, because you know most folk die in their sleep. Y'all know that, right? Mm-hmm. And when you die in your sleep, you ain't getting back up. And they die because of the fear that they have in their sleep. That's where Freddy Krueger come from. Because those are things that are demonic. Let me help y'all understand that as well. We almost finished at the table. There's a quick one tonight. I'm trying to help y'all get delivered because he also reminded me that in perfect love, it casts out all fear. Because see, when you are mature, see, some of y'all need to just grow up. Y'all got grown folk bodies, but y'all don't have a grown folk mind. Y'all talk grown talk, but y'all don't live grown folk lives. Oh, y'all live grown folk lives because y'all do what grown folk would do, but you ain't really grown like you should be because you still scared to live real love. It's why we got so many things that are going on, and that's why we have many outside relationships and we don't have a relationship. We have relationships, but we don't have relation. When you have relation, you're not afraid to do what need to be done. My dog doesn't know it's really true because my dog rolled over like, mm-hmm. Y'all know how folk do it when they really hear conversation. They realize, yeah, I know what you're talking about, dog. My dog rode all the way over. And he must know there's something that's trying to attack because he done came back in here to sit in front of me and he watching. The kind of dog we have, they were raised in Tibetan temples to guard and protect the priest. And whenever my dog feel a presence that's not of God, he always stand by me. Never trained him to do it. He was raised in the kennel, is where he was born. So he was inbred in that, and he does the job that he was bred to do. He wasn't raised into. So that means in his DNA, he knows the job he's supposed to do, and that's to take care of the priest. Y'all talk to me.
Yeah.
I ain't talking about you, but thank you. So if a dog know his job, we ought to know the job that God has placed in our DNA. It's embedded in you from Adam when he blew the breath of life and he became a living soul. Your soul know what it's supposed to do. So we should have no problem accepting the task that God had placed before us and not allowing fear to keep us or grip us and cause us to accept our present condition and our present situations, nor the circumstances that are there just because mama, daddy, sister, brother, grandma, uncle, aunt, neighbor, school teacher, principal have done some things, said some things because somebody said you would not be. And I look back because I had a third grade teacher said that you'll never be a president. Don't let black people be president. I do believe that before President Obama became the first black president, if I wouldn't have listened to what a teacher said, one teacher said that you'll never be becoming because it was a black teacher. A white teacher said, John, you can become anything that you want because you know how smart you are. If I'd have listened to the other teacher, which was a white teacher, maybe I would have went on and followed through with what had happened. Hello, somebody.
Amen.
But the embeddedness because a black teacher felt because of where I came from, the family that I was a part of, they didn't believe in my family, but yet your son became a part of something that was great because you believed that your son was better than me. But your son felt that I was just as great as he was. But you didn't believe in me. I'm telling y'all real talk of my life. And you lived in my neighborhood. We cannot allow what people say to us to impair us, impale us, stop us. So I'm trying to free somebody tonight. But if I'd have let that stop me, I wouldn't have a doctoral degree now. I wouldn't have been in positions that I was, and I would have never been a part of the White House subcommittee in 2008 to 2010. Hello, somebody. Now, I might have not have been president, but I rubbed elbows with George W. Bush. I was friends with the head of FEMA of Louisiana from 2008 to 2010. So that tell you a whole lot, right? What was supposed to have stopped me, it might have not got me in the position that I wanted, but it repositioned me to be where God had already conducted me to go. Hello. I was part of the Black Realtors from 2008 to 2010 in Nevada and in Baltimore. Hello. It was on stages of things that God had already positioned me for. So what people think that you're not great for, God have already redesigned and reconstructed the path that you're supposed to take. So just because the design don't look like it's supposed to look in the beginning, he's already reconstructed. He's designed it for you to go that way. You don't have to accept what it looks like, but you accept that God have created the path that you are supposed to travel. Allow your anger to stop you from fulfilling the purpose, because a part of the purpose of building you to achieve and acquire what God has been already set. You just have to walk the path. And while you're walking it, God gonna show how to navigate it and not settle for certain things, because if you settle for certain things, you're gonna miss where you're supposed to go. You're gonna know when it's time to ease up, Get up and move out of the way. Because if you stay in certain places too long, you're going to miss where you're supposed to go. You're going to miss the next move. You're going to know when to stop listening at certain people and just hear certain people. You're going to know when certain people are running game and when certain people are trying to get you away from the game. You're going to know when people are leading you and when people are trying to control you. It's not hard, people. Because fear will keep you where you don't want to be too long. Don't sing the song, I've been in the storm too long. Some of y'all sing the storm because that's where y'all want to be and feel safe in the storm. Sometimes you got to ride through the storm and not stop in the storm, because in the storm where you stop at, that's where you get destroyed at. You just got to keep riding through the storm. See, sometimes there's safety riding through the storm. There's danger when you stop in the storm. That's why the old folks say there's safety in God's water. Because while you're traveling through the water, God has already made the water safe. So God bless you. God keep you. We're done. Anything, Evangelist?
No, we ask that you join us on Wednesday evening for 6:30. We supposed to start at 6:30, but anybody know Apostle know we're gonna start our 5 minutes early, so we will be starting at 6:25. If you get on at 6:30, you already know Apostle gonna be mid-flight and he gonna be rolling with it. We thank you for joining us tonight for our seat at the table. If you thought I wasn't listening, wasn't paying attention, I was listening very clearly. Tonight was a work night, so as the evening started going down, I started slowly going down. It was 3:30, roll up in here quick. But tonight, I ask that each one of us take an ear to hear what the Spirit is saying. Because one of the greatest things that I look at is the environment that I work in. And one of those things, we had a student in today. And when we had a student in today, he looked, because as the nurses and we was conversating about the different people that we came in contact with, he said, it's funny because I seen you deal with a lot of people in med pass, but I noticed that you could call people straight by their name. And I paid attention that you gave almost 100 and something people medication. How is it that you remember that many people? And she said the sad part of it is that they come so many times, and that they can go home and they come again. They go home and they come again. This place has now become their second address. And I say that because of the fact a lot of times we continue to find ourselves in the same situation because of things that we have heard in our hearing. There was a time where parents used to say, you ain't gonna be no good, just like your daddy. Remember hearing that?
Yep.
You ain't gonna do nothing because your daddy did this and your mama did that. You don't have to be what your parents were. You can stop those things with you. And one of the greatest examples that I could ever give is that me and two of my brothers were born from a father that had an alcohol problem.
Yes.
And none of us chose to deal with alcohol for that particular reason. But I'll never forget reading something, and it said that there was two sons raised by an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. One says, I chose not to drink because I saw my father drink. The other one said, I chose to drink because I saw my daddy drink. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, they both had to make a choice and had to make a decision. So tonight, I want to ask you, what is your choice? Are you going to continue finding yourself in the same situation, or are you going to do something different about your situation?
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I look at is that we all know ourselves. And my husband and I was talking because I had ordered a couple of books. And one of the biggest books that I had ordered was one about keeping quiet. Mm-hmm. And I started reading it today because I decided that I was going to take this 45-day challenge. And sometimes when we hear the scriptures and we hear the word and we know the word and we can quote the word, but until the word do something different in you, mm-hmm. quoting is okay. Living it out is something different.
Yes.
And one of the biggest things that I notice is that a lot of people can quote a whole lot of things.
Yes.
But when you sit back and look at their life, do their life line up with what they're quoting? I don't want to be that person. You have to
Come
get
on.
serious about your walk.
Yeah.
And only you can get serious about how you walking and how you living.
Come on.
Until you get serious about your actual walk, then only then will we make the impact that God is choosing for us to make. But we can't make the impact because we haven't got serious with God.
Wow.
We can't continue to excuses. This is a choice now.
Exactly.
Either you're going to walk and live for Christ or you're not.
Come
One
on.
of the biggest things I remember my mama told me whenever I got saved young. And as most young people do, we do crazy stuff, make poor decisions. And she said, I want you to understand one thing. Either you're going to go to hell limousine style or you're going to go to hell through the church.
Yes.
So why would you go to hell part-timing with the devil whenever you might as well go to hell all the way?
Yeah.
Because ain't no sense you standing up in God's house saying, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus. And you know good and well that you want to part-time with Satan. Either you're going to live for God or you're not. But one thing I will tell you is don't go through hell, go to hell through the church. Exactly. Be real with yourself. Be real with God. Either you're going to serve him or you're going to serve him not. Yeah. So tonight, whenever I look at that and I sit back and I ponder on those things, I don't know about nobody else. I go back and I think about those things and the things that was said. And I hear it because sometimes whenever you look at the example, I was the one that had a great example of how to live upright before the Lord. You get what I'm saying? That's right. But I also had to learn that it was her choice to do it. You get what I'm saying? Because whenever you don't understand and you think people, especially when you're younger and you see your parents in the church and you see how things happen and people use and you see them getting abused and all types of stuff. And I know me, I tell you real quick, I was one that what came up, came out. I didn't care. So much so my badge say, one of my co-workers says that she got me a badge and it says, now I want you to understand that I match energy. Now you make the choice of which way we going. And I know that I am that person and that person lies within me. But I also understand that I have to change that about me. Yes. I can't continue to be that person. One of the biggest things that I looked at is Peter them did a whole lot of foolishness when Jesus was on earth. But after Christ had fulfilled everything and he took a flight back, he had to stand upright. He could no longer do the foolishness that he was doing because he didn't have Christ there to keep correcting him. He had to learn how to live and stand on his own. I need you to understand, pastors, we cannot live for the people that God had put us a charge over. Exactly. They have to make a choice, just like we have to make a choice to stand upright, continue to stand in season and out of season, continue to stand whenever we don't even want to stand. When our body's tired and we sleep and we want to get our rest just like they get their rest, they have to understand it's a choice. We all got a choice. That's right. Either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it at all. I love you. I love you. I love you. Good night. Y'all get some rest. We'll see you on Wednesday night at 6:25.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I was putting a comment. I was putting a comment that said, a charge to keep I have. Amen. So we hope that you got it tonight. Thank those of you that have been watching, my cousin Juanita, and all of you that have been watching that we could not see. So we appreciate you. I told you our seat at the table is so that it gives you strength. It's a little different than our Bible class, than our church service, because we like to be real. And I hope that it opened your eyes. I hope that it brought some things to light. I hope that it helped you to recognize, because we all come from different backgrounds. Not everybody had a silver spoon in their mouth when they were born. Not everybody came from families that well off, well-to-do. Not everybody came from families that were two-parent households, mom and dad in the house. Some of us had a father that was present, but father was still absentee. Some of us had absentee fathers, absentee mothers. Some of us, our parents, both of them had to work. Doesn't matter what color you are. All of us had some kind of hardship that took place. But that were things that we could do different in spite of what we saw took place. Some of us saw, fathers beating our mothers. Some of us saw mothers doing things that they shouldn't have done. But that doesn't mean we have to repeat the cycle. Doesn't mean we have to continue to let the same things go on. We have the opportunity to make the choice to either continue what we saw happen just because grandmother was this, or grandfather was that, or uncle was this, or auntie was that, whether they were hoes or whether they had, prostitution going on, whether they had the joints or whatever. We don't have that. We can do things differently. They wanted to pass certain things down. That's okay. If we pass certain things down that build us wealth and have generational wealth, that's good. Have we taught them how to use it? Have we taught them how to become diamonds? Have we taught them how to become great and what kind of greatness they have? Have we taught them that it's important to be able to build and how to store, how to invest and what investment is? Have we taught them how to take vested time to build and how to create investments by the vested time? Well, have we taught them what intimacy is before they become the physical intimacy? Have we taught them how to sit down and talk and create and know the person, understand the person, why the person act the way they act, and why they do what they do, and why they think the way they think, to understand how to create a relationship so that they can build relationships, so they understand what a relationship is, so that it becomes a lasting relationship. We gonna have arguments, fusses, and fights and bickering, but do we know how to come out of it? Do we know how to resolve? Do we know how to get in there and do a conflict resolution? What happens the day that you do explode in front of your child? How do you help them understand what happened and why it happened and how it does not happen again, to be able to teach them that, yeah, you still love each other? Because we quick to say, well, if you loved them, you wouldn't have did that. Well, if you loved me, you wouldn't have said this in front of them. Well, sometimes those things happen. How do you resolve it? That's what we do to be able to build so it doesn't continue to happen. Those things happen. Just because grandpa and grandma and them did it, it ain't all slave mentality. It ain't all because the slave master did it. Some things happen because it was choice. You chose to do it. Now, what do you do to keep it from happening? Just because the church. Why do you go to church? Why are you a part of this ministry? Just because you're a Mormon, just because you're a Baptist, just because you're Church of God, just because you're a Church of God in Christ, just because you're a Jehovah's Witness. Why did you choose to be a part of whatever ministry? Protestant, Methodist, Christian Methodist, Episcopal, whatever it is. Why did you choose the faith that you chose? Do you teach them why they did it? Do you know the God that you serve and why you serve him? Why do you live? Why you don't go to church? Why you don't believe in God? What was the reason why you didn't do it? Why did you leave? Have you helped them to understand the process of your thinking? Why did you choose the job you chose? The field you chosen? Why did you become a welder? Some of my family members are welders. They are electricians. They are cement finishers. They are masonry because they do brickwork. And some of them are carpenters. They're roofers and things of that nature. Some of them are mechanics. Some of them still do other odd jobs because that's what they chose to do. But they still made money. They still took care of their family. Some of them own bar rooms. Some of them did that because that's what they chose, because they enjoyed it. They're DJs and all of that. Some of them are school teachers and lawyers, and some of them are nurses. So why did you choose the field? It was what you felt that made you happy and you enjoyed it. Why? So help them to understand. Maybe that's not what they wanted to do. Some of us did some other things to get by until we got what we needed to get. I'm gonna go because it's 8:44. We started at 7:45, so I'm getting ready to go. So did you tell them that? So think about why you did what you did. So with that being said, we're going off the air. See you Wednesday night at 6:25. Might start at 6:15. Might start at 6:20. You heard Evangelist. So I just want to throw that in to make a laugh. So we'll see you Wednesday night. Lord willing, Lord spare. Be good. Be happy. Be loving. Be kind. If you got angry, lose your anger. No afraid. If you're in love, love has no fear. The reason why love has no fear, because you're not tormented. If you're living in torment, then that means you don't know what perfect love is. It don't mean that you reach perfection. It does mean that you're matured and you are no longer holding on to things from the past that's keeping you from living in the present, to have a present future, to build a future, to be able to create all the wealth that you want. So love you. Good night. See you Wednesday night if the Lord will. I love you. I thank you. I appreciate you. Good night.